Okay, so obviously not the most convenient location, but this is my revelation project. Um, I will admit the top looks sloppy, but I do say the bottom half took me a lot more time. And so for the overview, I obviously did I tried to encompass everything, but there's only so much of Revelation that you can actually fit on a canvas, and I learned that very fast. So I did the 12 disciples and then the 12 from the church. I thought they were pretty important. And then right here I did God on the white horse, which is kind of hard to see from there, but I did that. And then the four creatures, the head like an ox, the head like a lion, and then the human, and then the eagle. So that is, and then I did the 7 torches, which are kind of hard to see because it bled in with the lion, but there's 7 torches right there. And yep, and then I did Asia Minor right here, which I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then I did the lamb right here. I did the beast, and then I have to move it a little bit down, but down here is where I did the whole history part, or the historical background over Nero. And then, yep, and then that's mostly the overview, and I did do or at least I tried to do the rainbow. You can't really see it all that much or see the rest of the colors, but they're right here. So I did the rainbow that circles his throne, and it's right here, and it bleeds right here, and then it kind of fades off right there. And I tried to keep it sectioned off a little bit, sort of like the earth portion down here, and then the heavenly portion up here. So that's more of the overview. I really wanted to do the 12 angels and the plagues, but I think that would have taken a lot more time than I had to draw. So I tried to keep it as simple as possible for myself. That way I wouldn't be taking too long, because painting takes a long time. But anyhow, on from that, I wanted to do the historical background next, and then, let's see, okay, so down here, I did the coin of Nero, which it has his head. On the other side of the coin, it did have his name on it, but the way I drew this before I even looked at that. So probably not the smartest idea, but I knew I wanted it to be in there for obvious reason, because of taxation and stuff like that. And so I put this in here for that reason, for the taxation purposes, and against the Jews and stuff, another form of persecution, but not really persecution, trying to hide it, I guess, is what he was trying to do, but either way. And then down here, you can't really see it real well, which I'm kind of glad you don't, because his face is terrible, but it's a little hound dog, and then I have a human, this is a persecuted Christian and or atheist, that Nero condemned, I guess you could say, and they weren't of the Roman Empire, or they didn't want to worship him like he asked. So what he did, or what I found in an article, I'm not extremely sure. I think I put it somewhere else in my notes, but off of one of the articles, one of his ways of persecuting the Christians or atheists was, it's more of not an Olympic sport, but he had it for entertainment for his Roman guests and for himself, which is awful. But the hound dog would be smelling out the animal pelt that's on the human, and you would basically, I guess, like bite them to death and or kill them. I don't really know how hound dogs like kill people, but um, that was one of the sports. Like they would run around, obviously trying to stay away from the hound dog, and it would eventually find them and kill them. And I'm sure it was a long, slow, and painful death. So that was just not awesome. Kind of makes me aggravated to talk about it. And then over here, it's very hard to see. I wish I could get a little bit closer. It's one of my favorite, or more favorite ones I've done. I did a persecution of a Christian again, which he also thought this was a good form of persecuting them, which he tied them to a pole. This is also from another article that I believe I have listed elsewhere. But he tied them to a pole and he put them in a t-shirt or a shirt that is dipped in wax, or it has been soaked in wax. And he would use the Christians, or atheists or non-Roman Empire believers, as light for his garden, which is also why I did like roses right here. I did roses and a big rose right here. He would use them for light, or he would just use them also as entertainment for Roman guests. And I have another persecuted Christian right here. And it is said that two of the disciples were actually persecuted, not during this, but in the big fire of, or for the big fire of Rome, which many scholars believe that he actually started, but he didn't, or he, there's ongoing debate about who actually started that, which leads me to my next point. And I did one big rose kind of symbolizing those two disciples, because I just thought that was important, and I feel like that should really be explained. And then, so I have fire climbing right here, and all of this is fire all the way, and it even goes around the coin all the way up to here. And I wanted this to be kind of like Earth, or basically Asia Minor, or wherever Nero formed his persecutions. Rome in general, I guess, is what you could just call it. But this is kind of like the Earth, and so this is all the earthly portion, and I wanted to represent the fire of Rome just because it's such a big debate between a lot of Christian scholars today. So I thought that would just be extremely important to mention. And I also just thought it might be nice to put, or not nice, obviously, because this is not a nice subject, but I thought it would be useful just to put like a sword right here, just because of all the slain and persecuted Christians, just in general. Like, it broke my heart reading about this, just coming from, how we are today. So I just found that extremely awful, and I thought that'd be something good to put in there. And that's also, I have several things that kind of represent that, and just the whole persecution of Christians as a whole, like in Rome and during that time period under Nero. I painted the roses red. They come in many colors today, so I could have obviously painted them white, yellow, orange, whatever, but A, there's a lot of orange on my canvas already, and B, red, color of blood. I just thought it fit a lot more, and that's also why there's red splatters, like almost, I tried to make it almost as if it was like blood splatters, because there was just a ton of bloodshed. And red also is commonly represented as, the color of love. So I thought it was kind of like an underlying color that just helped me express, that there is all this bloodshed, but it was done out of, love for Jesus Christ, and he still loves us today, and he loved them then, and I just thought that it'd be an awesome color to use for the roses for that reason. But that's all the Rome portion that I have, and I have a whole notes that I'm reading off of that I typed up that has a lot of the scholars. I tried to give you at least a little bit of a heads up where I was getting a lot of this information from, but I didn't have much coming from Nero, but they are listed in the bibliography. And then, let's see. So I next want to talk about, since that was more of the historical background of the whole painting, I want to talk about the actual symbols that I used. And let me adjust it. There you go. Okay. So, for symbols. Let's see. I guess I want to do the churches first. So, the churches, I wanted to use them as a symbol, like, in general. So that's why I did Asia Minor right here. I didn't have a lot of time to actually represent this, so, I kind of just did the best I could on this because I was running out of time. Because to be honest, I thought the project was due Sunday night, which I forgot about the deadline, so I was, like, rushing, and it was just terrible. But anyhow, so I did this for a couple reasons. Just because I like the way he listed out kind of what all the churches have done wrong. Or not what they've done wrong, but what they lack or stuff of that nature. So just excuse my pronunciation on all these churches. If for Ephesus, that's right here. And I did an empty heart because he abandoned the love that they had whenever they first opened or whenever they first started their church. They basically abandoned that. And then I move on to Smyrna, which I just did handcuffs or like little baby cuffs and a little crown beside it because in Revelation chapter 2 or 3, it said that, or God stated that there will be a time of persecution where some of the Christians will be thrown in jail. I believe it was like 10 days. I'm not exactly sure on the exact dates. But they're going to be thrown in jail and persecuted. And I just thought it'd be good to represent that because he didn't really have much to say on what they've done wrong. It's more of just like if that church would hold steadfast to his word and to his like preachings and everything and basically hold fast to faith until death, then they would be given the crown of life. So I just thought that was very interesting. And I did a little block here for Pergamum. So in the passage it says that what it's representing is the stumbling block that was put in place before the sons of Israel, which is basically like eating foods that are sacrificed to idols, idolatry, things of that nature. So I thought it would just be easiest to put a block because you can't really, I mean you could, but that would be kind of complex trying to paint something like that, like idolatry and stuff like that, and plus I didn't want to go into any of that stuff. So there's that. And then I next did for Thyatira. So he talked about Jezebel's teaching, which is also idolatry and eating, the wrong foods and stuff of that nature. But he said that if they're able to tolerate the teachings of Jezebel, then they would be giving a white stone with a new name, is what I believe it said. And they will be able to eat of the hidden manna. So I thought that would be a positive thing. So I guess I kind of mix positive and negative images right here for the churches. And then this is Sardis, and they're basically the sleeping church, which obviously is a church that is kind of like just going through the motions, I guess you could say. So I drew a moon, and I drew an outline of a cross with it like lined in blue and white stars, and then there's a moon beside it. And then there wasn't really much to say about Philadelphia, because they did, well, from what I read there, they did most of the things right. So God said that he would keep them from their hour of trial, and will make those of the synagogue of Satan bow before their feet. So obviously they're doing something right there. And this is basically a door with just like intense light. Very hard to see from right here. Not the best painting either, but that's what that is. And then for Laodicea, I just did a coffee mug with a little teacup. I'll give you a little bit of a closer picture there. And I chose to do this because this is the church that is lukewarm, and he said that he will spew them out of his mouth because of that. And that's also something that was in the movie War Room, which I love War Room. And it's one of my favorites now, that whole series. But it's just basically they're lukewarm, and that I had no steam coming from it, which kind of indicates it's not hot. But you can't tell if it's hot or cold because it's just showing a coffee mug. So there is that. And then, let's see. What I thought was really cool is I did some more research kind of like on the 7 churches. And I'm becoming extremely long-winded. Didn't know I was going to be this long-winded. I probably should shorten it up because you said 20-minute time limit. So, the 7 churches, there was, I guess I'm not just going to list what I had in here because that would be a lot harder to do, but I think they were used in Revelation for certain reasons, such as like, I think it just they needed, where did I put that? Put that somewhere. Okay, so I think this helps the people in that time kind of see what they're doing wrong so that they can fix it. And it also provides encouragement to future churches, because a lot of the scholars are saying that it's not meant for just those churches, it's meant for all churches, like all the Christians. So if you kind of see, if you're given an example ahead of time what you're doing wrong, it's a whole lot easier to fix. And plus he's giving you a chance to actually fix your wrongdoing. So I think that's a key reason why it's in Revelation. And plus, like, it adds like another layer to the apocalyptic theme to me, because not many of the apocalyptic things that we have read, that I recall at least, aren't like really letters. They're more like generalized, and this is like specifically to the 7 churches, so it kind of helps. I don't know how to get it out. They're just not the apocalyptic. How do I get this out? it just serves like as a guide, and apocalyptic is usually all like doom and gloom. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Not really sure on that part. And then I don't know if this is good or bad or not, but in my own convoluted way, I think that I think that passage, or the fact that they list all of these things, like maybe a non-believer would read that, or they would hear about it and they'd be like, wow, that's not good, that's some of the stuff that I'm doing. So in my own convoluted way, I think that it could actually lead more non-believers, or just like more believers in general, to Christ. So that's my major point, is why I think that my personal belief that why it could be in Revelation. Moving on to the Lion and the Lamb. So I think that the Lamb is in there only because it's seen as more of like, okay, let me just outright say it. It's like a stupid animal, or not very competent, which I'm assuming that what God thinks, not that he thinks badly of us, but he doesn't think we're the smartest people ever, because we make mistakes all the time. And I think that the Lamb being in Revelation helps, like, tons of people relate to that, because I know that I mess up every single day, no matter how hard I try. I'm pretty sure everyone does. So I think the Lamb is just a relatable image, and it just helps so much. Like, I know it helps me a little bit relate. And it was also in Revelation to show that even though it was slain, it's kind of still standing, and faith perseveres. God perseveres over the devil. So I just think that was a big point in that. And then I also wanted to do the lion too. There's not a lot of attention that gets put on the lion, but I thought it was actually very interesting, so to speak. Only because the lion, it represents like the destructiveness and irresistible strength and ferocity, but no one really just pays attention to it. And several scholars talked about it, like the Lion and the Lamb. Like, does one interpret it or destroy it? Which I thought was a very interesting argument, because I never thought about that, because the lion's mentioned in the very beginning, but then it's all like lamb everything. You don't really hear anything about more of the lion. So the obliteration, like, two of the main points, or scholars are led to believe that the symbol of the lamb is meant to control and interpret all the rest of the symbolism. And then it's almost as if some of the scholars are wanting you to read lamb in the place of the lion in the Old Testament, or relate back to the cross and the ultimate sacrifice. Every time the Old Testament speaks of victory of the Messiah or anything of the like. But so that's kind of like on a one-sided, more of the lamb. But another scholar claims that that it's failed to recognize the real problem and how the Messiah is representing you just using both symbols. Which I don't have time really to say more about that, but he has a lot of good points. Steve Moyes, one of the authors of the articles that I read, I really liked him a lot in some of his arguments. And then the reinterpretation, one good point, I'm just going to make this at the very bottom, kind of leave it there. It says, from the scholar Barr, it says, the lamb is the lion, but the lion is not the lamb. Yeah, and he talks a lot more about that. Once again, don't really have time because I'm long-winded, but he has really good points on that, and I think the lion and the lamb, or either or, are both very important to Revelation, especially the lion, like, because it doesn't, like, you may be seen as a lamb, but, I guess you want to come across as a line when you're trying to reach over to Christians, and like the fact of the line just being in the Old